I'm on unemployment right now.
Oh, so everyone you get,
Yeah.
takes out.
$1,000, 500, so.
This is for the team or for
My
the
severance
club
package
team?
from my last company, so.
So that was all club. Yep, so you say regional, you regionalize the club, and then there's.
So you're running District 2, nice. A few other folks in there.
Enough people. This is. $878 with
Violent. I stopped you. I was hoping to keep a lot more than all that. You know, everything. It was my brother. I was planning.
Oh, really? Oh, cool.
Yeah. So it's time, man. It's time.
No, thanks.
It'll be interesting. I was gonna bring you mine.
Yes, yeah. Where'd you go together?
What?
Where'd you go together?
I have a cup at home. And, so every use them.
Okay. That's kind of cheap.
Yeah. Also,
That might be a long way to pull this out.
yeah, I think, yeah, and ever since I got gray hair in my 40s, I think, well, I'm a senior cop. Out the window and I see question I go down at 8.
Right.
So. Well, I'm glad I did.
18, everybody's
Also,
also.
I know.
Yeah.
Something if I had to bail out.
Right.
It's funny how the gas is out there, so I'll see people that are.
You know, I mean, I
Yeah.
she's great, and I mean,
You're like, oh, to be qualified to do what.
they're.
No, I you have to operate on me or whatever.
We have a couple of them.
Yeah, it's like getting,
Well, the operating room. You're my doctor?
too far, it's too far
I
off the
just
road.
got out of high school.
And it's not off the
Yeah,
road.
it's set in a way that the entrance. is You are not sitting back there. Pull the fire sit right.
sit next to Rob.
Alright.
And off the tomatoes. Got my iPad.
The tomatoes gonna be thrown at you or Rob or.
Yeah.
He might
All
be-
the above.
he
Yeah, all
might
the
be
above,
thinking-
that's right.
Thinking off of you.
All right, I come to the door at 9 o'clock. Thank you all very much for being here.
We're gonna, Chris is on.
Howard should be dialing in too if he's not already.
I thought, I think it was something.
Yeah, I'm doing the YouTube stuff for the. On you. We're not, it'll be fine. I'll put YouTube later.
You have someone in public comment? Want to address the meeting? No comment. Okay, I watch. All right, looks like first up, we're gonna talk about the disparity in the fire chief. We call this oversight.
There's just conflicting information.
Right. The policies say different things.
Yeah.
Three.
Three.
Agree. Yeah,
Great.
appreciate it. That was fun.
When we updated the ordinance, I didn't look further down or we didn't look at the rest of the ordinance. We only focused on like how the chief was selected, and in that ordinance it states, that it's the council's job to basically the fire chief reports to the council. And so in the contract, again, it states that, it is, fire district 2 representative, city administrator, and the mayor, that in essence perform the evaluation. And then in the personnel policy, there's no job description to state who, the fire chief reports to, but if there's any sort of conflicts, then it goes to the, mayor and I. So if we can sort of clarify, and then that can then flow down to the job description, when that's set up.
Howard online,
Yeah, he should be.
he said he's only as a webinar participant,
No, and I,
said I hung up when he clicked the. Opinion.
On their place.
okay, yeah, he's on there twice. So,
He's in Maine or Canada, so that's probably the one.
um,
There we go.
one of them worked.
It's a main working. Apparently both.
Right, yeah.
They've been.
Okay,
Terrible.
Yeah.
you guys hear me?
One each. so.
Hello,
Hey, Howard.
testing. Hey, yeah, I just want to make sure you guys can hear me. I'm joined as a panelist. Thank you.
Mhm. Thanks for making it.
Why not? If we discussed item D first, it might resolve all the others, depending.
Well, we'd still have to manage the department,
Yeah.
until then, and so in the interim, yeah.
Right, yeah, okay.
I think my feeling is it's really not fair to our fire chief to have all of these different conflicting policies in place. I mean, we need to have, there should be just one resource that basically lets him know not only who he reports to and but also the job description, what's expected, all of those things. They need to point to one policy as opposed to 15 different policies. I think that's my. I think about.
You got the job description,
I did, I haven't had a chance to look at them all.
just mashed up the two that I got. Put all of the training requirements that weren't listed in one, but were kind of listed in.
Does it state who they report to?
No, we got that.
Right. Right,
It does. It says, city council for now, and then, I made one for the fire district as well. So we have, they're the same, it's literally just the names
okay,
and the references to it.
Yeah.
And, in the fire district, I added that I helped draft resolutions for the board. A little bit different, we could probably meld it into one.
well, so that's the thing, so in the agreement, it states that the fire chief is, in essence, that the fire district 2 is contracting with the city of Stevenson for the fire chief, so you wouldn't have to have a job description for
I didn't read that.
those.
How you contract when there's no monetary exchange.
They're paying-
Say that the fire district's gonna pay X amount for fire chief services.
They're paying 30%. Okay, so they're not, so,
No.
right, okay,
We
so,
outlined what they're paying in that contract, right? Here in
right, in the contract is they're paying 30% of everything else, except for the fire chief salary.
There's a list. We
Right.
listed it out. We had that discussion. It was like 2 meetings worth of stuff.
Right, and they pay 30% of whatever's listed in there,
Okay. Where's the fire chief?
except for the fire chief.
So there's no contract.
But in the contract, okay, so I guess that's a discussion.
Yes, that's where I'm going.
I'm trying not to duplicate efforts because it is very difficult to have one employee have 2 different bosses and have 2 different governing bodies.
Right.
So we can have one governing body. That is very helpful and it streamlines things. If we want to have 2 governing bodies, that is okay. It just makes it more complicated and makes it more challenging for someone to manage a department. Especially if you have 2 different policies that are adopted by both governing bodies.
Said that, I think reflects what happened. Maybe we need to move down to item D and have that discussion because that talks about the very situations that you're talking about. And if item D can be resolved in a meaningful way, I think that a lot of these other things will be taken care of. Now, that's just me.
And that's just me.
That's the various options available. For the governance structure of the department.
And I brought this up, to Leona. I hate working from home. I've been in positions where I have been under multiple bosses. And it's just not fair to employees. Myself personally, and again, I'm only one vote, but I would like to see the city of Stevenson move out of the fire protection business and contract with Fire District 2, an interlocal agreement similar to what we do with our law enforcement. How that works, I don't know. Financially, you know, moving the money that we have for the fire hall over to Fire District 2, moving, you know, every year when we get the tax base for fire protection within the city limits, moving that to Fire District 2. But it would just be cleaner as far as the city goes. It would be cleaner for us to have a single contract with Fire District 2 for fire protection services. That's where I'm coming from on it.
My opinion on that is the reverse. And I think if you guys understood the amount of support that City Hall gives the fire department, and you would understand that if we were to do that, that the city would handle fire protection under a contract with the fire district. The fire district would pay the city to run the fire protection. Because Fire District 2 does not have the administrative infrastructure. We rely heavily on the city personnel policy. We rely heavily on billing when we buy stuff that benefits the firefighters. It's all through the city. It's already set up. The one problem I have and have had over the years is I don't know if we actually account for the time that we have with like, you know, whoever else touches Fire District 2 stuff. And, you know, that should be billed if we're gonna get down to the nitty gritty. I've always thought that, and it's kind of easier not to bill it. And I don't know if we do. I don't think we do.
It's allowed in the current agreement.
Yeah.
We have, so we have that.
Yeah, I remember we talking, you know, that's future state, that's, you know, it should be billed, like it's a service. And it should be like under professional services, and the whole quarterly invoice should be that. Professional services, basically. The county and the fire district complicates that by trying to move that bill into each individual bars. I think the county gets screwed up, so. That would be my thought, if we were to try to do that, then the fire district would just, you know, pay their insurance on their assets and pay the yearly contract, and then basically be done with it.
As a rebuttal to that, I would think that if the fire district has problems as far as having the structure in place to be able to manage those details, maybe they need to take a look at what Fire District 3 did, Fire District 1, and with Skamania EMS to do those things. Because you've got the additional monies coming in now from the contract that we provide. And maybe that could help pay for those support services.
But that's what we have now. So what Rob is saying, the city managing it is the contract that we have now. The city shall furnish all
I know
personnel,
that.
yeah,
I
and
know
so, Rob, I guess, what are you saying would be different? If the city were to
Well-
contract wholly?
We basically, so the fire district has an actual fire tax.
Mhm.
So they get that's how they operate. The city doesn't.
We have our property.
Yeah, we go off of the general.
We
fund.
go off of, yes.
So it's basically whatever Leon and I would say for the budget.
Right.
There's nothing.
Right.
Um. Yeah, we already have all of that structure in place at the city right now. We're just not doing a good job of doing it. We should.
But what I'm saying is, I want to get out of the fire. I want to take that load off of the city and give it to the fire district and let you handle fire department the way it needs to.
I want to see the numbers because we don't. So you're essentially saying basically do the services without, you're basically getting around the annexation of the city in the fire district too. And then having that levy of the new tax.
So there's a couple different ways it can go about, that this can be gone about. One is the annexation of the city into Fire District 2. Another one is the creation of a regional fire authority, and you
Still
nail
takes a
out.
vote.
Exactly, yes, both of those take a vote. And then the other one is to negotiate what it would be to contract wholly with Fire District 2 for services. So that would be a negotiation of what that cost would be.
My thought is, so far, all I'm hearing, the reason it can't be done is just paperwork and structural things. And those are, can be worked out, so I'm not, but to me, Dave's idea actually shows it's a matter of respecting the fire district. They're the experts in fighting fire and know what it takes, and they don't, it gets the city of Stevenson, I'm not a city council from meddling in their, we're not meddling in their affairs, so that's a loaded word and I don't mean it that way, but it's just saying, hey, you're the experts, you deal with it. We'll help pay for it. We'll figure out what's fair on the money to everybody, the taxpayers and the different entities. And then you go put out fires because that's what you do. That, just like the sheriff department fights crime. So to me, it's just a matter of respecting, like the Fire District 2 board, and say, hey, how about the people that are elected there? They handle these decisions. And in fact, a lot of times you see the opposite, where people are wanting more power for themselves. Here we're wanting less and say, you guys handle it.
Call the meeting over and we leave right now.
But well, we're in the same boat.
Right.
I mean, you know, we all have weighty decisions we have to make, and so.
Right. I'd like to agree with Dave. I know that's not the norm, but I think that you can only have one boss, no matter who you are. You should have one person to lean up against. But the fire district is so out of line with making all the phone calls. Is this bill go over here? Is that? We just don't have it. We got Zippo. We have a telephone, and I don't know what the number is, but we do have it. So I would like to throw it back to Rob and ask, what problem would you have with having the city be number one because most of the things that you would deal with are time sensitive, like a water main blowing out. You don't have time to think about it. The fire happening or something happening with the chief situation. There's not a lot of time to make that decision. So the city has this infrastructure already built in that it could be dealt with, being dealt with here. And then the fire district, we have to be summoned together, and it costs money to do that in a lot of time. So it just seems like you're the obvious place to do it. Now, if we need to make but I'd like to ask Rob, what his feeling is in working with the city on that.
It's worked great since 2014.
Okay.
Never had.
Kinda what I thought.
issues Come up where it didn't work well with the city admin under the direction of the council. And then we put in that clause that the city and the fire department or the fire district has to weigh in on removing the chief. So there's that.
Right.
That's why I wrote that. It gives both parties an avenue to start that type of thing. If you have a defunct chief, or maybe you just don't. Maybe you think it's time for a change.
So I think one of the concerns that I'm hearing is there's not enough infrastructure at Fire District 2 to provide the services at this time.
Just
But
personnel.
but that's what we're talking about, so. We would contract with you to be able to support providing those services. So what would that look like to be able to do that work?
No, I agree. It feels like two valid points. If it's just comes down to the infrastructure of being able to make that switch, that's one thing. But let's go up a level. What makes the most sense as far as one or the other, and work out the contract, whether it's EMS or the city, to stand up the infrastructure. So I don't want to get caught too much. Yes, infrastructure is a serious concern on the fire district side, but what makes the most sense for being the one entity? If that's the discussion that we're having.
And I might add that as we develop the plans for the new firehouse, this table would maybe change their mind down the road when we have an office, we have a phone coming in, we have these things going on. That doesn't exist right now. So at least to get us from point A to point B, I think that,
I have some comments too, guys.
Wait,
So,
what?
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think like with Rob, even in what you said, and then I think Dave, you said it too, we have to understand what that infrastructure requirement would be. And if we currently have an interlocal agreement with the city and things aren't running the way they should, then I would need to know, at least from my opinion, what are all the requirements? What are all the things that we have to do to operate if Fire District 2 was going to run that, and what would it take to support that? And then along with what is the flip side if we did it, the city got into it, because I don't think we have enough to even make that decision yet. Because I don't know what the requirements are.
So, which I have a question for Leanna in regards to this, because you work with Rob the most. What are your thoughts? How much time and effort on the infrastructure and the paperwork and stuff does the city provide other than Rob's work? In other words, how complicated is the infrastructure? How much effort and staff time is involved? Like, I mean,
It ebbs and flows. It all depends on what's going on and what needs to get done. So, you know, prior to the strategic plan, it was very minimal. It was the budget. It was when things need to be purchased. It's coordinating like the garage door replacements and maintenance for the building and the IT setup and that infrastructure. So you know,
I'm touching City Hall weekly with Caitlin. It does ebb and flow with Rob's employment status, so. You know, I was getting emails from me at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. That's, you know, I'll get a burst of thought and put it down. And, you know, but yeah, it's probably, you know, more than a couple hours a week. Yeah, I purchase everything. Utilizing, you know, my city visa. And then we have the infrastructure already in place for like small works projects. The bay doors are a perfect example. You know, we use the quoting system in the purchasing
policy for the city to get that going. You know, the city right now has a bigger pot of money, just because of the way we've saved. And that actually really changed when Leon come on board and said, hey, you can do this and roll over what you didn't spend and do a reserve fund. So that's when we started really gaining traction on the reserve fund.
So that's the amount set aside for the fire. And then so that's
We
just-
have some budgeting rules that say we're gonna put aside some stuff. Specifically, like I think we're putting, well, at one time we were putting aside $10,000 a year for our next replacement of breathing apparatus. There was like a 25,000 for a new truck. That's gonna probably pay for itself when we get a place to put a new truck. Like I think we're probably sitting, if we went back and did the math, we're probably right about the $500,000 to $600,000 that we've saved, and we've been saving for years on that. So it's all there already. If the concern was to try to consolidate, my push would be, let's approach the fire district and say, hey, here's an all-in-one. We're gonna eventually push all the apparatus assets over to the city. The city will manage that. The buildings will probably have to have some type of lease agreement, I would say. And the building down here is Fire District 2 owned. Transfer of the fire district insures that building, that would probably be transferred to the city. Just logistically, that would be wrapped up into the contract. And then, like I said, the fire district, 2 commissioners just exist to, you know, maintain their, if they have any assets left, which I think it to be the real estate would probably be for left, and then they would just need to agree to the contract if the contract's being met. And then it kind of like what maybe White Salmon did in District 3. I don't know if they did a contract like that.
Right now, or?
Well, I know they did something, they formed something and then drove that relationship as like a test trial for the regional fire authority. Then you have to have a regional fire authority, that's a vote. And then like they're going through it right now, it's a whole year planning year. So that's a lot of work, which I'm not afraid of work, but.
So ultimately, the question is do we need more, do we want more information to see what the options are?
I think we fixed the conflicting documents now. Policies. So maybe more aligned with the wording for the fire chief section in the interlocal. And then the combination or the transfer of contracting of resources might be that's a way bigger. That's not a Saturday morning conversation.
So I don't want to drift too far away from the big topic is, do we, all of us here, agree that flattening the structure on the governance of fire protection needs to change to one entity? And if that is the consensus, then we can drill down and decide, look at these different options and look at what makes the most sense. So some of it is a great deal of work, the regional fire authority, annexing, or just create this management system that we can work out between the two. But I think that the first decision is, do we move forward with flattening the governance of fire protection?
But Scott, if we had to make that decision, if we don't know which direction we're going, then that decision could be a decision we can't make until we know that, at least from my perspective.
And I agree with that. So, you know, we'd have to look at of the options that are available, that are on the table for how to make that path happen. That's the part where we need more information so that we can make an educated decision on how to move forward with that one choice. Do we flatten
And
the
I think-
governance of fire protection?
Right, and I think it would be also helpful to clearly document the current state of where we're at and how things operate so that everybody understands how they operate. So we have a clear picture of the path we're on now, so that when we know what those options are, we know where we can plug that in. I would need to see that.
You know, that's a good point, Howard, because there's no reason not to know. So basically, we have an operating system now that isn't clear to everybody, and that on itself, even if we weren't going to change it, probably isn't a good thing. We should all be educated and clearly know that, to where we're not having to ask that. So one of the things, by continuing this discussion, we'll at least know, we'll all be better educated, and maybe, that's our individual responsibility, but still, what exists now, we should always know that, even if we did nothing. So that's why I think this would be a good process to continue this discussion that we're on. Because we at least should know that, and then, so we have three options, where we keep what we have now, or one or the other assumes more control and we flatten it out, is the term the mayor used, or.
Right, and I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that what we know to be written, documented, right? It can't be just in conversation, because I won't be able. I need to see the picture, so it needs to be written down.
Yeah, so I'm in favor of continuing this discussion to figure this out myself, if that's the question Scott is asking.
So so we just went through a strategic plan to help the consultant help us with that plan. There must have been something that was documented so that they could wrap their head around this two organizations.
Oh, I'm sure there was, Scott. We probably peel that back open and overlay that on currently, did they document how we operate clearly, and then peel that out into a single statement that says, this is how we operate. And then we can would allow us to list out the avenues that we want to pursue with all the pros and cons and how that overlays. I think we probably have most of it, and we've had it in conversation. We just don't have that in a single location that specifically answers this question.
Process flowing out that is not going to be hard. Fortunately, that's what I've done for the last 25 years, is process flow.
I'm not seeing
Exactly.
causing this move in the first place, this flattening process. And the process itself is going to be very expensive. You're going to have lots of lawyers involved, and I'm not sure what's prompting this move initially, because I see a lot of things that work here.
What's the general area of the district? What kind of school district?
No, so you have the city, and then there's 9 square miles around the city that's fire district 2. So is that the whole city?
Up top is city limits.
I have a map, I can forward it to you. I have to find it, but so basically think about just where Fort Rains is, just west of Bridge of the Gods. So that's where our district starts, and then it edges up along, basically border into the state land, wraps around Stevenson, and then
On the north side.
on the north side. Dave knows this. The map I'm talking about is from Dave.
So it includes all the.
Yeah, it wraps around, and then it ends about mid to ending of Sweeney's Corners. That's probably maybe half a mile to a mile west of the roundabout. And then it gets the edge. There's 9 square miles.
It's basically a big border.
Yeah. It's the smallest fire district in the county. But we have them, well, can't say we have the most population anymore, because fire district 2 and maybe more people does now, but once upon a time, where the population has a. But I do have a map. I'll find it and dig it out for it to everybody.
Yeah, well, I didn't realize it would be a contentious issue. I mean, so that like, when you mention all the lawyers be involved, it's like, well, why? Why would it take a bunch of lawyers to figure this out? I mean, is there tension around this issue that I'm unaware of, or?
I think just to create the structure.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
No,
yeah, so I
don't find it contentious at all.
okay, no, yeah, so
Point.
I wasn't trying to raise something that was
Yeah.
controversial or something, or I don't think Dave was. I thought it'd be a matter of if I were on a fire district board, I'd say, hey, we're in the fire business, not those people over there. I thought there'd be enthusiasm for the idea, actually, so, but I guess I could be wrong on that.
The enthusiasm, the lack of.
No, I thought there'd be.
No, I'm saying
enthusiasm
for me,
Yeah.
I have a structure right now that works very well with the city.
Okay,
Very well. That is the one thing that's really working really well.
So let's go on that.
Yeah.
What's the problem
So
with keeping it that way until, at least until?
Here's the map of fire district boundaries.
Yep.
I mean, thanks for clarifying what you meant on the list.
Oh, yeah, that's, yeah, I didn't mean to sound that way at all. I think it's quite the reverse.
Well, I mean, that means that you have fire boat, which is.
Or
Yeah, but
a
dock.
big canoe. Covered dock,
Yeah. A big canoe.
We can paddle out there and, yeah,
out to the
or water balloons.
But yeah, Pat, I didn't mean to come across that, but that's my lack of, hey, this is a great idea, because I have like. I've been through 4 city managers, 3 city managers. Leona's the best. Because she understands she's modernizing this office, which is, 40 or 50 years worth of problems. Being paper problems. We work great. I don't bug Leona. She doesn't bug me unless we need to bug each other. And I work with Caitlin a lot. And before that, it was Mary. Before that, it was Candace. So that's why it works. Like flattening out. That's why I would say if you want to go down that route, District 2 contracts for fire services from the city. That's the same model that Vancouver Fire uses with Fire District 5 in Vancouver.
I think that makes sense. I mean, if you're protection against wildfires at least, that involves the space outside the city as well.
I mean, we don't have jurisdictional lines when we respond, because we respond as a fire department. So it's, it's purely administrative. The one boss for the fire chief, it's never been an issue yet. Now, my whole mantra through this whole thing is set it up for the future. And that's where I'm at. Like, it doesn't make a difference to me. It would be as the taxpayer once in the future, I would be more involved, but I'm good with whatever. Like status quo is working great.
So really, I mean, even if we are gonna change something wouldn't get changed, that's not it today. And we can talk about the different options, but if we can get those 3 things to line up, the documents to actually say, the oversight for him is either the council. The one that made more sense to me was the 2 representatives from our district, the mayor and the city administrator.
Yeah, the group.
Like that makes sense to me, that's people and fire people. And then, so, but again, whatever the group thinks would be the best thing, getting those to line up. And then, yeah, if there is a change we want to make, why are we changing? What's the impetus for making this change right now? If there is going to be a change, okay, we can look at that. But but at least get things lined up to where we spell out what it is we do.
I don't think that as a group, especially with the homework that was available, that we're ready to say change, yes, no.
Right.
But I do think it warrants further conversation, because I've been trying to wrap my head around this 2 governance, two bodies. And then because there's taxes and voting involved with Fire District 2, there's certain requirements that as far as bookkeeping administration is compelled. you must do these things. And so I think it definitely warrants further discussion and if whatever we can, what information we can gather so that the next meeting, that's the meeting that we're gonna decide. The very first thing is, do we change what we're doing the way we're doing it?
Yes. I like, yeah, that's what
And
so we start with A and we just go, okay, like
And
we got that, and then,
So if we
Right,
do,
Howard.
my comment for that is we can't, if you make that statement, don't book the meeting in 2 weeks because you won't have an answer and I'm not going to decide.
Oh,
Just so you know.
yeah,
Howard, I don't think.
Well, and if nothing else, we
You'll get your-
unearth how weighty this decision is, so that we understand what kind of information,
Right, it's a big
what
deal.
we would feel comfortable gathering, so that we are prepared to make an educated decision.
Right, yeah, that's been a lot of weight on.
well, again,
It's set the meetings up.
Right.
That's the last agenda.
It does sound very clean in theory to remove it under one of these, whether it's.
So if-
District,
so that would-
contracting with the city.
Right, so if that's the flow chart, do we change it? Yes. Okay, what
But
direction?
changing it is so, it just seems like such a complex, massive and expensive thing that I think I'd rather put that money towards and that effort towards just getting a fire hall.
Yeah.
Or, we have to choose. I don't know.
is it, and I know you're not saying this, is it, in other words, us understanding clearly what's happening, because it sounds like we have people on both. There isn't sides here, I don't mean it that way, but there's people with both entities that don't have a clear understanding of how we're currently operating. So I'm not hearing anybody saying that that's, a big time, that's expensive or a big hassle. We should always know how we operate and have a clear understanding of that. So I think that exercise needs to happen, even if we were gonna make no change. I'd wanna know, well, so that needs to happen anyway, because we all need to really crystal clear what's happening. And it sounds like we don't have that clarity now, so.
Absolutely, I think that's what Howard said.
Yeah, right, yeah, so-
Yeah, I agree with
Right.
what Howard says, I agree with what you say.
Yeah,
Very first decision can't happen without that information,
Right,
with
yeah,
that solid
right,
bank.
yeah,
of
yeah.
info.
and from
Yeah.
that, then we go to whatever needs to happen or doesn't need to happen, whatever that case
Right.
is.
I
But,
can see the flow chart in my head already.
all right,
Make it just.
So-
so I
Make
still,
a change,
I
no,
still think
meeting
A
over.
needs to have, we need to
Well,
make.
yeah.
Yeah, we need to go back to
regardless,
those.
yeah, so the question is, do we wanna have a subcommittee that looks at this ahead of the?
No, sorry,
Well, no, but it's
no,
easier to
wasn't-
get 3 people in a room than it is 8.
yeah,
Just gonna
no,
say,
Hence
okay.
the fact that we are here at 9 o'clock on
on
Saturday.
Saturday. So,
I think we do, and I'd like to be part of that subcommittee.
Dave? Well, I'm thinking part of the
What,
subcommittee,
man?
I'm thinking, part of the subcommittee, I'm looking at you, that's why I was doing that. You're not on the sidewalk subcommittee. So,
I mean, this one. Howard, I'd be on a committee with you. I'll sit down.
Okay, great. Awesome.
Well, I don't mind talking to people about it. I don't wanna be on a friggin' committee, another committee.
If you love committees,
No,
your
I
favorites
don't.
are committees.
I am not a friggin' politician.
Alright, so that's the fire district, that's the city, do we need a third?
I mean, I figured
It's a-
Rob and
it's
I
two
already
people
on
with staff
it,
committee.
but unless Rob doesn't, unless someone else in the fire department would want to be on it.
I mean, I need to give you guys the current state.
Right, yeah.
So,
You
so,
know, Izio or Lisa chart, I could map it out for you.
Howard, Rob, me,
and then you'll understand it well enough to educate the rest of it, so.
we'll get it mapped, he'll map it out for
Yeah,
us, we'll
right,
talk about it,
yeah,
and we'll be
okay.
able to push that information out.
Thanks for taking that on.
I mean,
Yeah.
it matters to me too, so. So that we got that, we're gonna do that, that'll kind of help us with D, I think we need
Yeah.
to go.
Yeah.
And start with the one that we start with. And get the existing ordinances and policies all to say kind of the same thing.
So there's, let's see. So in the contract, I can try to put it up. Um,
I'm just trying.
No, no, no.
Actual items. I'm like
It's on the
actual items, I just can go.
Yeah, no, it's
No, I
fine.
know.
Oh, you can't see it.
It's like a
yeah.
weird angle.
It's 1989. Right one.
No, it's all good. Wrong one.
Yeah. That one's from 1989. I feel like that's the old one.
I just don't find this.
There you go.
So. That outlines the services, the section B, it says the city shall furnish all personnel. It's sort of one section, and you know, personnel management, including discipline. And so this is where it sort of talks about personnel, and then there's specific information about the fire chief, and that's where it goes, as to, so it's a city volunteer and subject to the city's personnel policies. But they report to both, at least quarterly, regarding items, but it doesn't state, like who ultimate the oversight is, but it does talk about who's involved in the performance evaluation. In section E, oh, here, let me share, sorry. Oh, here we go. So in section E, it talks about who performs the annual performance evaluation, and how the chief is, appointed and dismissed. It doesn't talk about anything between, other than stating that it's a city volunteer subject to the city's policy. And so that's where, you know, it's subject to the city's personnel policy. There is no job description that states who the supervisor is within that policy. And so whatever we decide ultimately would go into that personnel policy, the job description. And then the city's ordinance states that the chief reports to the entire council. So if that's the structure that we want to keep, where the fire chief reports to the council as a whole, then that will be incorporated into the personnel policy. And we'll have to work out how the rest of the policy applies when it talks about going to your supervisor, because the policy assumes one person.
Right.
But again, that could be worked out further within maybe the position description as far as how the rest of the personnel policy applies when there's 5.
No, no.
You might want to speak up, because I don't know if Tom can hear you. Or Howard can hear you.
Tom too.
Tom too, yeah. Or Dave.
I just thought having the chief answer to the mayor.
Well, the question I have is, I mean, let's say Mike, I don't want you to feel sensitive like that. What if there's, so let's use, if you're the fire chief.
Yep.
And there's a complaint against you. To me, I'd go to your boss. Well, when you have, I don't think the council should be the bosses, because we're not in the micromanaging business, so the council shouldn't have anything to do with it. I don't believe, and you should be able to go to one person. If you, even if I'm wrong and you didn't mess up something up, who am I gonna go complain to? It should be one person. Well, who typically is managing things? And that'd be somebody like Liana or somebody from, I'd like to see it clean. It's somebody, it's the fire district 2 has total authority and they're the boss, or Liana's the boss. Seems simpler to me, because if I have a complaint against a city staff person, I naturally go to Liana. Of course, the mayor under the statute has the authority, like the CEO of the city. But I don't think the mayor probably would want me calling and say, I got a problem with Michael. When Liana has the authority, we'd get those calls if I had a problem with somebody else in the office. You know, as a citizen complaining, so. But, and then you could say the same thing for when everything's going great in terms of the evaluation. Let's say there's gonna be nothing but praise on the evaluation. Well, having one person responsible for that glowing evaluation they're gonna write, as opposed to 6 council members, or so whether it's a problem or a good thing, reporting to one person just cleans things up.
Well, who does the fire chief go to when he has a problem with his boss?
Well, then he would have to, then it'd be go up to the council at that point, yeah.
So right
Yeah,
now, it's-
right, so,
That'd be a
Yeah,
personnel
no,
issue.
there's some structures in this county already right now that the avenue isn't there.
So right now in the personnel policy, if there's an issue if you have an issue with your supervisor, the first step is to address it with your supervisor. If it's not resolved, then it gets escalated to the mayor or I. So, and if you have an issue with me, then it would go to the mayor. If you have an issue with the mayor, it's an elected official, so.
Yeah, that's
We have
pretty
it.
much basically how we've done, we had to do a progression like that, with the fire district for a federal grant.
Right.
So
Grievance procedure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes.
right, yeah.
fire chief,
Mhm,
that they don't get,
mhm.
then it goes to the district.
Right.
Commissioners.
Right. Well, but that's the thing, in state statute. The council doesn't have personnel oversight, so it doesn't go to council for normal personnel issues, it stops at the mayor in our structure. If it were a council manager form, that'd be different, it would stop at the manager. And there's also, you know, depending on the nature of the complaint, I mean, there's also whistleblower options, and protections in the current policy that we have. And so the challenge here is that, so the fire chief is a department head, but they have a different reporting structure. And so the question is, does it warrant something different? Or
How do the current city directors report? Do they report to you? I think I've always thought it would be logical for the fire chief in the city to report to the city administrator. But it's always been to the council. And I think that's the disconnect, it was with,
since 2010 at least.
I know it was, well, yeah.
Yeah.
I know it was always an issue with the previous city administrator, Nick. Is he couldn't get it wrapped around his head that the fire chief is the department head of a city department. Like public works in the city department, planning and community development in the city. He always separated it. You're the volunteers. Well, yes, but it just happened to be the volunteer, the department head that doesn't get.
Right.
Isn't that is their primary profession. Which that makes the transition into at some point. Maybe a paid chief or a part-time paid chief or a combo. Chief fire marshal, emergency management coordinator, that would make the road a little bit straighter for future growth.
Aren't we there now?
We should be.
We
Well,
talked about that.
well, yeah, I know.
I mean, we're at $1,500 a month now
No, we're talking
for a
Hey.
fire chief.
like the full position. But wrapping stuff that you were contracting out to the county back in, like the fire chief, the fire marshal stuff. That's what I proposed doing on it. No, not a full-time chief, there's not enough call volume for work.
Right.
Yeah,
You would have to combine them into three.
So it sounds like model, going with the same model, or just folding into the model that's already in place. Because the chart that's already in place, everything goes up, department head up through the administrator and the mayor as needed. That makes a lot of sense. The part that gets a little wobbly for me is because that's the city. The chief is the chief for both entities. So what's the other half?
yeah,
But
that's what
like-
I was gonna ask what what the Fire District Two folks thought about that. I mean, what are your thoughts on, because we know we have three different things. How would you clean it up? I haven't heard this. What are your thoughts? What?
And that's my point exactly. What started this whole conversation was, now we're bouncing back over to another entity saying, okay, now what do you think about this?
Well, yeah, but they're, right now, they do have some.
I know, but.
So,
I like to fix things
Yeah,
that are broken.
exactly.
It
Good
doesn't
point.
seem to be that it's broken. So it's like, why continue on? Now, in the future, when we have a new building and in that building, we build infrastructure to take District Two to have the fire protection role, that would be different. But for now, we just pretty much have to, I think, anyway, stay the way we are. And if Rob's happy with it. We all know we have to answer to somebody. And at least we know where to find Leanna. If we go buy her cars there, she's here. It works, you know.
I think if there, if there's a need for us to sit in on a performance review or whatever, or there's some sort of specific issue, then we can address it at that point. The other thing is the at-will release is part of the city personnel policy, right? So they could,
Well,
that's kind of the.
so
conflict.
it's at will, but it has conflicting, the language is there for at will, but if you look at the progressive discipline, it's really not at will in practice, if you read the policy.
Okay.
So, well, the thing is we have to clean up the language as it is. So it is.
because it's saying three different things is
So,
why.
exactly.
To your point.
Mhm.
So
So if we fold it into the city model, are we
Okay.
done with all of this?
Yeah, so update the ordinance, to. And I'll run this by everyone as well, to remove that it's reported to the council. And then I think that whole duties portion would just, be referred to like shall perform duties as outlined in the personnel policy. So ultimately, like, there's no other ordinance that states what the duties specifically are for, like, the job description for public works director isn't in the personnel policy. I mean, there are certain things that might be within the code for what they do, but ultimately it's housed within the personnel policy. And so I think I'll update the language to, maybe leave some things in here that need to be in here as far as like, I think it talks about the ordinance, enforcement capabilities and things of that nature that need to be in an ordinance. But the rest of it would be, could be in the job description as far as these are the duties of the fire chief. So, and maybe in the duties, it says, if there are any changes to the job description for the fire chief, that it complies with the interlocal agreement for how those are done. To kind of, again, and capture the fire district to buy-in on what that position does.
Sounds good.
Did you mention, did I miss part? Did you say, who did you say that you would? This language, he'd report to who he or she would report to, did you say? the council?
So when we talk about the job description, it would report to the city administrator.
Okay,
just
right, that's
as
the
our
part I missed, I
department head
heard.
Structure, yeah,
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
but in the duties, I would put reference, the job description and any changes to the job duties would need to be approved by both governing bodies.
Yeah, okay.
As agreed, or as outlined.
Okay. Does that make sense?
That's what I.
No,
need
does
for
that
A.
make sense? Because you're,
All right. Moving along, B.
And sorry, Rob sent me some, job descriptions and, I will print them off for everyone to view.
Pretty. I didn't.
How many-
Stylize them.
Yeah. Copied and pasted and deleted.
Stored, borrowed,
Give it to the AI.
right?
No.
Right?
I didn't AI.
You didn't?
I should have.
Hey, so,
Okay.
hey, Leanna, if you guys are
I'll
changing,
forward those
just,
to everyone as well.
What, I'm sorry.
Howard,
I-
Go
that's
ahead.
all right. So if you guys are changing the city, policy, then there's nothing that the Fire District 2 council has to vote on, right? Because it's all just the city stuff. Is that how I understood what you just said?
Right, as far as the policy goes, yeah, so in Rob's email, he has, two policies, one for,
Right.
the city and one for Fire District 2, but Fire District 2 wouldn't have to adopt it.
Correct.
But I would, but in this setting, I would see Fire District 2 approving the job description. Is that,
Okay.
you wouldn't have to
I
have
just want to be,
your policy adopted,
yeah, I just want to be clear on the ask of what Fire District 2 has to do.
yeah.
I think we could just add a responsibility would be support Fire District 2,
Mhm,
and
mhm,
then
yeah.
that would cover
The first draft,
yeah,
okay,
that would cover my thought of needing to have a second one because there was some other duties that I do for the fire district that I don't do for the city.
I bring up a possible way for item B, because rather than, to me, coming up with a job description for somebody is, I mean, in other words, I don't know, do we all, as a council, want to be involved in formulating that, or just be involved at the end of proving something that looks good? Because I think a competent manager, which I know we have, and the fire chief can sit down and say, okay, what is a document? What should be my job description? Whether, right, and I think what brought this about, in my mind, what brings this about is you're not strictly, the fire chief isn't strictly a volunteer anymore, where it's gonna be loosey-goosey. Now, even though it might be a small amount or some would say it's not a small amount, but a part-time, well, then hey, what is the job description? What does the person do? And a lot of it's in their head, so we're putting that on paper. But in other words, is this something Liana and Rob could come up with and then just present a cleaned up document to the council to say, hey, does this look good? Rather than us helping hash it out. I don't know if I need to, as one person, feel I need to help write a job description.
I think the hard part is, it's going from the council being the manager and Fire District 2 and the council dictating all of these things and then bringing it back into how all the other department heads are run. And so I want to make sure that everyone's okay with that step, which is why it was here to have that input.
Okay.
But I agree
Yeah.
with Pat in that, yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna say, well, no, Ralph, I'm sorry, but line 3 of this job description is not how I think you should be doing. I'm not dictating that in any way.
Yeah.
And I don't think that you're asking this to you, I'm just saying,
Right,
yeah,
okay.
I agree that if you guys work out a good, this is truly what the job description is, looks nice, and this can be.
Yeah, this is like just a direct result off of Leon and I saying, should we get some job descriptions? So we weren't trying to rebuild the wheel. It's
So E done, B, I mean, I'm thinking B
Okay.
is
B.
with the legal, this, I mean, I'll still look over
Okay,
this.
yeah,
but-
and please let me know if there's something in here that you would like to see
Okay.
in it that isn't included, so and Howard and Christie, I forwarded that email with those documents. So again,
Thank you.
let me know if anything has changed.
Thanks.
All right, so C. Discuss plan future fire hall.
Oh, boy, 10 o'clock on Saturday morning.
Yes, Rob.
So
I have new development that I wanted to
I
talk
have
to
designs
Leon
up there.
about, so I wouldn't be opposed to like tabling this for next meeting.
Okay,
Cause I don't know what I was told that is public yet.
gotcha.
We can go, this is a joke, we go into executive session. Anyway, that
No,
was
it's a
a joke.
special meeting, I can't change it.
I was-
I wish
That's why I
could.
said.
I mean, I'm not
this is a
trying
joke.
to keep anything, I would just.
Yeah, no,
Just
yeah,
maybe
yeah,
wait
yeah.
until
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
get.
So just as a quick, as an overview. The original plan was to put, EOC. Both fire departments, for the district and the city fire department. And EMS in one building and hired a consultant. Or to design such a building, and that's when EMS said, thanks, no thanks, and EOC said, yeah, we don't really have the money for that either, so now we have a very expensive. Or a building, a very expensive building that we don't need anymore, so then that's kind of where it's stuck, we have a piece of property and a building.
Sort of. That was the 2013 one. Then we did the 2019, which only had the two fire agencies and the EOC. That was the 6 mil and 6.4 million tag. That scared the EOC out. We have a new sheriff that probably wouldn't be as scared. But the
And
problem is,
new emergency management.
we need an emergency manager. So I think that should be back on the table, to at least approach Sheriff Shire on that.
Mhm.
But that 6.4 mil is probably like 8.4 now, maybe a little bit more. How much?
Maybe we could value engineer it down to 6 million.
Well, I mean,
Like
yeah,
that's-
we would have to
that
go
was-
back and
There were a
see.
lot of things, and so I also wanted to couch, I threw the plans in there. And,
Actually, before though,
there are living quarters in there. And
2013.
no, even in the 19, because
Well,
we
did
threw and through.
contingency.
Yeah.
Yeah, the kitchen.
So there are things in there that are for future needs, kind of like setting it up, because we do see a need somewhere down the road. To maybe have someone like overnight or some full-time people staying there.
Well,
So,
there's opportunities even now.
yeah,
The scenic area fire is contracting with, DNR right now to house one of their engines in Fort Rains. On the other side of the river, Cascade Fire is contracting with scenic to house one of their engines, so. That's something that I would wanna consider, hosting
mhm.
that type of a deal. Maybe it's
Other interagency partnerships.
yeah,
that,
so-
yes, yeah.
I mean, I don't disagree at all that 2019 plan or 18 plan should be looked at and looked at it from a different picture.
Mhm.
But we did value engineer out a lot, and there was still a lot of
lot.
contingency in there too. I think it was almost 30%.
Well, I think a lot of it had to do with the ground conditions.
Yes,
So that
yes.
was the concern.
So the other things that have been factored in is if it stays in the current where we have the property, it's part of what could become part of that neighborhood could build out in the next, 10, 15 years. So do you go with a utilitarian building or do you spruce it up so that it looks like a part of the town? Do we keep the barracks? Do we keep the drive-through bays? So there's just all these things that have to be factored in. And I'm really just trying to set the stage so that when we do a deeper dive, that you have this kind of formulating in your head. The biggest challenge though is how to pay for it. And that's always been the stumbling block. What are we paying for and how are we going to pay for it? It's still going to be to the taxpayers. Please, can we have some of your money? So there's a lot of, it's a political ask. It's a thing that we're going to have to try to wrap our head around. Where is that money going to come from?
Now the sewer plant's done.
Well, that's where having the two political jurisdictions is tricky because if the city does a bond, fire district has to vote in a bond. Yeah, it gives me nightmares to think how much back and forth we went. But it is, we have a good plan.
Mhm.
That 2000, is it 19 or 18, I can't remember.
Wow.
One of them, the plan that we did with McKinsey.
Yeah.
And then I can't ignore or can't have to point out the fact too that Tom's done quite a bit of work redesigning it, has been out and examined, looked at the geotech, found a better place to put it. There's lots of things swirling around. So That's why when I said, 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning, talking about everything that got us to today. It would take an hour just to catch all of you up on the different things before we even said, okay, questions.
But like I said, there's new information that I was
Yeah.
gonna try to get in on Wednesday or Thursday meeting and I wasn't able to.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, that it could change it.
Okay, so maybe we just hold off, or hold this one to the next.
Yeah.
So if I'm not mistaken, that is all.
No, we need to talk about the future meetings.
Oh, yes.
I just wanted.
So Saturday morning.
Yeah, you're not letting.
Put the gavel down.
You know, let's do something fun on a nice warm day in the summer,
Always good to do the holiday weekend.
right? Yeah.
Been there, done that, in here.
So.
The July's coming up. We should just do it on 4th of July.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Oh, then we,
Um,
you want me to buy fireworks with my stipend?
Yes,
Shoot them off?
No, I,
yes.
Meet down at the.
Okay.
yeah,
So, the plan is quarterly. Is that,
is this Q1 or Q2 or like, kind of like both?
are we catching up with
I
one?
feel, I mean, this is Q1, really. We
Yeah.
haven't had it, this is our first meeting in
This is our
24.
Q1.
I
Yeah.
think we met and finalized everything in
It was
January,
December,
February.
I-
Signed it.
Maybe it was in January.
yeah. I'm trying to remember Wes, because I was involved in that, but I was,
First meeting and it was, the election is just complete. So
Yeah, and it was-
We're talking about
yeah,
December, right?
yeah, so.
Yeah.
So I think it might have been December.
In January?
The year, then we signed. But
Well, either way, I guess how many
Either
meetings
way.
we need to have
Yeah.
too, like,
Right.
depends on the topics.
Yeah, so.
Well, I don't wanna try and cram one in super fast if there's things that need to be.
You're right, January 17th, you know.
if there's-
So I
Okay,
guess this
so
could
that,
be Q2.
It's
Okay.
Q2, so we can go
Yeah.
out a little farther.
Yeah, so,
August, yeah, September-ish. We got the, August is already screwed up because we changed the meeting to the regular city council because of the fair.
right, so July, August, September is kind of the Q3.
So you wanna try to September instead.
Rob, if you
I'm
do
available on
get that,
Saturday the 7th.
if you do get that information that might be game changing, can you share,
Yes.
you can share it with us?
I just wanted, yeah.
Yeah.
I,
All right.
I'm looking at my.
I wasn't given it in any an official capacity, so I wanted to bounce it off of Leona and maybe Scott. Well, Scott too, but I was gonna bounce it off on Thursday, so.
So August is, what day we're,
August, September.
okay.
I think we said
September.
September, okay.
I mean, and we
On-
don't,
awesome, the calendar.
this being, like, because we're so far out, it also does not have to be on a Saturday. If you
Okay.
want it on a Saturday, we can do it, but because we're so far. We may be able to fit it in on a weekend,
I'm personally not keen on a Saturday, so.
Yeah,
right?
Oh, I'm
Especially
already-
not on a Saturday where the Aurora Borealis was out, so,
I mean, at least it was 9 and not 8, yeah,
not for you.
the meeting was at 9 in the
Oh,
morning, not
yeah,
8 in
I
the
was
morning.
gonna say, mine is on the kicked in.
Right.
Tuesday the 10th?
Tuesday, September 10th.
September.
Well, and then the other goal too is if we put it on your calendar.
Tuesday,
Yeah, right,
I'll
so
put it on
that's-
my calendar, I won't schedule
Yeah.
anything for it.
I'm
So,
always
Yeah.
like, all of these work for me.
Right,
okay.
okay.
And then
Tuesday,
what,
September 10th?
yeah, and what time would that be then?
6 p.m.
Okay.
Would that work for you, Rob? Okay.
Yeah, I'm done with mine 4 to 6
Okay.
in June, so.
Okay.
No?
Okay, and then, do we want to schedule the next one then at that September meeting, or do we want to do the, October, November, December meeting?
I mean,
Just pick a date. and-
December, Tuesday, December 10th, would that work?
and then- as of
Not on
now,
that day.
Are we working around budget that time? Is that gonna overload you guys? The budget's wrapped up in November, right?
Yeah, my goal is always to have it done by November, just because I never know if everyone's gonna be able to show up in December for the meeting, so. Just make sure.
okay, yeah. those were the dates. Okay, as of right now.
Now,
Okay. Yep, any, yeah.
meeting adjourned, 10:11. Thank you all very much for being here.
Wow.
Thank you guys for coming.
Have a great weekend, guys.
Yeah,
You too.
Thanks, Howard.